we up and running? I am jumping right in here. I tried to get the StreamYard running, y'all, and I couldn't. I couldn't get all my profiles set up, and I haven't had time to pre-run it. So I hope I'm here. I'm hoping somebody shows up. I tried, my goodness, for probably the better part of 15 minutes before I came up here to, hey Jay, what's going on, buddy? You're the first one here. Hi, Mythological Muse. I tried to come in through StreamYard, but it wouldn't take. And so it was trying to find my other profiles, and it was mixing up the profiles. And I was all excited to come through on all the channels, and then my regular, and then this YouTube channel, but it just didn't happen. And so I had to just I panicked, and I just jumped over here to YouTube and hopped in. So I am totally flustered right now. Totally flustered. We had a great shindig. It went really awesome. Oh my goodness, time just absolutely flew, and I ended up getting sick at the end. I just got over about 101-degree temp that I've been running for the last 2 days, and I still got a bad cough. So we're hanging in there though. I'm doing my best, I promise. And hopefully next week I'll be able to get all the profiles worked out, and I'll be able to just not be so disheveled starting the gig. And I don't have, obviously, because I'm not in StreamYard, I don't got my banners that I usually have. And then we're only going to get onto one channel. So it's just going to be a small little group today, guys. Thank you so much. Yeah, the microphone last week was screwed up. I'm telling you, man. I'm telling you, it's a one-man show. And I am... You're going to hear me. My cough is bad. I've been sick for 2 days. I hardly was able to get out of bed on Monday, but we got the weekend through. I'm working on a nice intro video for the next Saturday. That's going to show some nice pictures. It's been absolutely crazy. Hi, Twisted Pixie. Hi, Bill. It's just us, kids. It's just us. There's just going to be a few of us today. I had everything ready to go on StreamYard. I had open streams and everything ready to go. And the last minute, it showed that I was still in my profile on YouTube that I always am. It hadn't switched. And when I switched to this profile, man, everything just blew up. So I just jumped out and I hopped onto YouTube and started the live. And so this is really raw. This is really raw. I mean, I had a lot of stuff planned for StreamYard today. And nope, it's not going to happen. Until I have a full-time geek here to help me with all of my profiles, all of my emails, all of my identities, man, it's going to be rough, but we'll get there. How have you guys been doing? I need to blow my nose. Hang on a sec. Where do I mute? I don't even know how to mute myself on this thing, so you guys have to live through the nonsense. I don't even know. Honestly, I don't even know how to mute myself. How funny is that? Here. Sorry about that. I just am getting over my fever. I caught a really bad cold on the trip, but I'm doing okay now. We had an amazing time together. The group is amazing. I wrote a letter in Chuck's Corner. Y'all should check out. That just turned out fantastic, and it just really expressed how much the weekend meant to me. So I'm just so thrilled. I'm just so thrilled to have had that experience. It was incredible. What the wildest thing was meeting people that I had only known or seen on this little chat thing, and to meet everyone in person was incredible. It was incredible. I met Pete for the first time. I met oh my goodness, I met so many. I'm flustered right now because I should have been on StreamYard, so my mind is kind of jumping around. I probably should just stop talking and just start answering some questions. Hello, Bonfire Beach. Hi, Craig. Glad you're here. Hi, Twisted Pixie. Yeah, I'm glad to be here. It's just us, guys. It's just us kids today. There's just a few of us. I had everything set up for StreamYard, everything, and it just blew up about 1 minute before I was supposed to go live. So I'm sorry. The whole thing blew up. Sorry. But if you guys want to ask any questions, I'm happy to answer whatever questions you got. Just put it in all caps. Yeah, I'm sorry, Shan. I'm sorry. I know you were ready for StreamYard too. I was too. And the whole thing just blew up. I don't understand how to change all the different profiles for all the different social media, align those into one stream, and then get that stream out. I don't know how to juggle all these different things, recombine them into one stream, and then put that out. And so until I figure that out or get a geek or something, it's going to be like this. Hi, Chuck. I already missed Washington back. Yeah, I bet you do, Shannon. It was great meeting you. Yeah, that was fantastic. No, nobody. I don't think anyone else was sick. I was the only one that came down with something, I think. Hello, the transcendentalist. Nice. Okay, well, I'll bring up some banner questions and see. Here. Let's see what we can bring. Oh, I don't even know if I can bring up the banner questions because if that's in a different profile. And if I change profiles, is that going to mess up? Shoot. I don't know if I can access the banner questions. Let's look if I got them in my notes. I'm telling you guys, I'm so disheveled because I was all ready to go on StreamYard and it blew up 30 seconds or in a minute before I had to go live. And so it just really messed up my vibe and flow today. And so I'm just grabbing my shorts here, trying to find stuff that I didn't expect to have to look for, and I can't find it. So Shan, if you can, buddy, start taking the questions from banners and putting them up here so we can get going. Because I don't have any prep work for this. This is completely driven by what y'all ask. Okay. CERN shutting down for 4 years, significant for humanity. The timing is interesting. Hi, Chuck student. Yeah, it's because CERN is an evil institution full of Satanists, and the world is in the midst of change right now, and we're moving out of a satanic-oriented world to a humane-oriented world. And so the whole CERN psyop is being put on hold. But I firmly believe that CERN was invented to open wormholes to allow further evil to consume this planet. So yeah, I'm not a big fan of CERN, needless to say. I'm sure you guys saw the satanic rituals they had when they opened up CERN. It's kind of neat. It's just a few of us today. This is nice. My kids are influenced by other kids that are religious, which many are, but we're not. How do we make the discussion work between us and them when they hear about Jesus and mention him? I'll tell you something, Jules. One of the real problems with religion is that it is folks that are religious are taught to be intolerant, and they're taught to be intolerant under the guise of unconditional love, which is a real mind twist. But the intolerance comes from the fact that the religion divides the world into in-groups and out-groups, the trusted and untrusted, the worthy and unworthy, the chosen and not chosen. And whenever you split reality and your understanding of the world and dumb it down into one side or the other, you lock yourself into that dumbed down assumption. And so if you are asking questions based on the dumbed down assumption, the answers you're going to get are always going to be dumbed down from reality. And so you can't have, in other words, you cannot have an educated dialogue, tolerant dialogue with a person who is highly religious, because they have really been taught to only allow a world that fits within the religious context within which they have subscribed. And so you can't have a reasonable dialogue. That this is what is understood by those who have awakened out of religion. You can't have a objective, practical conversation with a hardcore religionist because their world is so small. It would be like having a conversation with someone about a car accident, and both of you are witnesses, but they only saw one half of the accident. So they didn't see, let's say, you saw all the beginning and what led up to the accident, and all they saw was what happened just after the accident. And so their content is going to be less than the content you have, because you saw the whole accident. You saw what led up to it. They only saw the aftermath. And so they have to assume certain things based on what they're observing now in the accident. You see, but they're never going to have a full view because they didn't see the beginning. They didn't see what led up to the accident. What were the causes and initiatives that led to that problem, to that collision? Okay, religion's the same way. And so think of religion, or think of the world as the accident or the context. And if I approach the world in a religious context, I'm approaching the world from sort of a half or quarter view, because I'm only going to see what fits in my binoculars, what fits in the view, the religious view of the binoculars, what fits in that view. You see? So I'm blind as a religionist. I'm blind to peripheral. I'm blind to anything that is outside the view that the religion is offering the convert. So the convert is unaware of what is outside the view, you see? And so this is what happens when you try to have a conversation with them. They're looking around the world saying, no, that's not right. Let's say I'm talking to them. No, that's not right, Chuck. That's not right. That's not what I'm seeing. And meanwhile, I'm standing there going, okay, if you would just take your religious binoculars off, you would have a wide angle view. And when you can see the world from a wider and wider angle view, you wisen up to the deeper principles that are hidden inside the individual events. And therefore, you could see the bigger event, the bigger picture that leads to these individual events that you're observing. Do you see? And so religions don't like it. Leadership doesn't like it when the converts, when the congregation thinks for itself. The congregation is not to think for itself. The congregation is to obey. The congregation is to wear their binoculars, wear those religious binoculars, and never take them off. Never look at the world in any other context but what the religion allows. This is how you develop what's called an egregore, because the person, the religionist, doesn't have a full view. And so they're basing all their opinions, they're basing all their assumptions on what the religion, the authorities, have handed to them. And when your worldview, when your ontological structure is based on what's been handed to you, you see your life is never than your own. Your life belongs to the authority. That's called giving your sovereignty away. When you give away your sovereignty to an authority, you see, your life is no longer yours because you've given it away. You handed, in other words, you handed your brain to the catechism. So now you're no longer thinking. It's the church, it's the authorities that are thinking for you. And then you parrot whatever the authorities tell you. This is how you dumb society down and keep society from thinking for themselves. You just build bots and parrots and obedient people. And then they just go and carry out, without even thinking, the objectives, the telos, the goals of the institution. You see, but you're not an institutional creature. You're a nature creature. So you don't fit your world, your objectivity, your understanding doesn't fit into an institution. You've met people who we would call institutionalized. An institutionalized person doesn't think for themselves. They think on behalf of the institution. They no longer are the director of their own life. They've been institutionalized. And so every fanatic, every hardcore, dedicated, convicted religionist, you see, is institutionalized. They're no longer a nature creature. They gave their brain to the catechism. They gave their brain to Allah. They gave their brain to Yahweh. They gave their sovereignty to the religion. They now identify as an institution. They're a Christian. They're an Islamist. They're a Jew. They're an atheist. You see, they're no longer a human. They're one of those institutions because they're not thinking for themselves anymore. They're just parroting what the institution says to believe, to follow, to obey. You see, they're good little boys and girls who do as they're told. And this is what the controller wants. The controller wants all the congregation to be adolescent in their discernment. The authorities don't want self-doing, self-thinking, self-deriving people. They want obedient bots. They want parrots. They want people who obey the system and no longer identify as a nature creature, but identify as an institutionalized creature. You see, and that's not human. Do you see? This is the perniciousness that permeates religion or any institution that doesn't allow or like alternative thinking. People who think for themselves. The institution is not going to want that, because when people think for themselves, they leave because they discover, wait a minute, I'm not an institution. I'm a nature creature. I'm not a bot. I'm a sovereign being. Do you see? And so that person will no longer be willing to give their sovereignty away. Does that make sense? And when you start to think on this kind of level, you see, you free yourself. This is how you free yourself, because we all free ourselves. There's no such thing as a savior. There's no such thing. If there is such a thing, that's you. You are your own savior. No one's coming to save you. No one's coming to make it all better. You have to do that yourself. You have to take your own responsibility and improve your own life, because that's the only way you can merit your life. And nobody wants a life handed to them. Nobody wants that. That's the life of a coward, and nobody wants the life of a coward. Everyone wants to merit their own life. Everyone wants to merit their own existence. Nobody with sovereignty wants that handed to them. Do you see? And the religion is dying to hand you your life. They're dying to. They're dying to take your sovereignty from you, because then you stop thinking for yourself. Do you see? It all works together. It all works together. Okay, great question. We'll continue. That was from Jules 6918. Now next. So this is from Mo 2253. Hi, Chuck. This weekend, did you find that even though some people were there to learn the truth outside Christianity, they still can't see the world without the Christian worldview? Not too much. I found that most of the folks that went this last weekend had pretty much given up on religion. We had a really great question that came from the audience, which was, do I believe in God? And I said, no, I don't believe God is a form. So I think, in other words, that God is past the idea of God, the kind of thing I'm talking about, which is the void. There's no form, there's no description. As soon as, in other words, even naming the void, I've now put it into form, you see? And so the idea is to have your understanding not land on any form or be dependent upon any form. The God idea, or the idea of God, is a product of the formless. So believing in God would be believing in a less than, the unspeakable, because God would be a form out from the unspeakable. You get it? This is really hardcore Buddhism. This is I align well when it comes to origination. Where or what is all of this? I align well with the Buddhist idea, which is it's a wonder. It's not a thing. It's not a form. It's not anything. It's a wonder. And the Chinese call it the Tao. It's just a flowing emergence. There's no source. There's no end. There's no start. There's no finish. And when you amalgamate to this kind of idea, you're loosening yourself from the finite. And the less you cling to the finite, the less anxiety you are inviting into your life. Make sense? The less forms I demand for my quote unquote peace, right? The more availability, peace, becomes, the more available peace becomes. Does that make sense? Because I'm not clinging to a form. In other words, when you have a conversation with someone and they've got, let's say like they're a hardcore religious and they're like, there's Jesus, there's Yahweh, and there's the Bible. And this is really where I base my spiritual understanding. Or there's the Quran, and there's Allah, and there's the black cube. And I really base my spirituality on these things. You see, okay, when you talk to those people, imagine trying to talk religion, not reverent or adherent to their final belief in Jesus or Allah. You see that you derail. This is how religion destroys relationships. It keeps people from having just a conversation. This is why the Great Awakening is destroying highly religious families, because the Great Awakening, religion is not copacetic with the Great Awakening, because the awakening is past any religion. And so what you notice then is the way that religion destroys family is, look at what happens to the person in the family that leaves the religion. Look at what happens to them. The rest of the family, the rest of the quote unquote congregation now no longer has them in the circle of trust. They're going to treat them differently. They're going to see them differently. They're not going to talk to them the same anymore, because the religion has destroyed the objectivity that is natural to the human relationship. Because the religion has come in and said, no, you don't think for yourself. I, the religion, think for you. Do you see? And as long as we're unequally yoked, as long as we don't align in our ethos, in our spiritual center, we got a problem. We got a problem. Because religion is not interested in mixing things up when it comes to spirituality. This goes all the way back to the tribes in Israel. This goes all the way back. You do not intermingle with people who think differently, who believe differently. This goes all the way back. And the reason for that is because the religion, the authorities don't want those conversations happening. We cannot have that kind of dissension in the tribe. The religion is not tolerant of that. You cannot leave. It's like the mob. This is why the mob doesn't have half members. You're either in the mob or you're out. There's no middle, like, oh, every once in a while he does mobby things. No. You are in and serving the mob, or you're out. That's why there's so much emphasis placed on those verses that talk about choose one side or the other, or God spits you out of his mouth. You see, choose a side, because it's what you believe that matters. And when you become obsessed with belief, what happens? All your faith goes away, because your faith is the antithesis of belief. Do you see? The more faith I have, the less belief I hold to. The more belief I hold to, the less faith I have, because faith is the absence of belief. The less I cling, the more faith I have. This is why when you base a religion on what you believe, you see, that religion has nothing to do with faith. Nothing. Because it's what you believe that matters. Right? Because when you die, according to Christianity, it's what did you believe? What God did you pray to? What was the name of that God? Was that the correct God? Because if you didn't align with the right name and the right God, you're out. You're out. It has nothing to do with faith. What did you believe? Do you see? And so the religionist is blind to this. And this is why they cannot have a objective conversation with someone who is outside their religious belief. They can't have an objective conversation, because they have to have that central fulcrum, that central point of alignment. And this is how the religion destroys relationships. It's so intolerant. Do you see? Very good question. These are very good questions. Okay. Let's go to next. Okay. That was from Mo. Okay, next, Chuck Student. Hi, Chuck Student. I personally know no one who has awakened. How do you think this is possible to stop apocalyptic? Okay. Because, how do I explain this? It is not that we are stopping the apocalypse. Now follow closely. It is not that we're stopping the apocalypse. In fact, if you think about it, we're in the midst of the apocalypse right now, if you think about it. I mean, really, look at the world. Okay, just look at the world and what you know. Okay, so my theory, my idea is not denying the apocalypse or cataclysm, and you guys know that. I don't deny that. What I'm saying is we're going to have the cataclysm. We're going to have the apocalypse, but it's not a physiological apocalypse. Do you follow? It's a psychological apocalypse. The cataclysm, now follow, the cataclysm is the destruction of all the institutions that have always run society since Babylon. And think of what happens to a society when it no longer has its religion, when it no longer has the science and medicine that it once used for understanding. Think of this. When it no longer has psychopathic Satanists running the show. Now, wouldn't you say that the difference between the world we're going to and the world we've been in, right? Wouldn't you say they are cataclysmically different? Wouldn't you say that? I would say that. I would say that just what you know now that's been going on in the government, because anybody aware knows that our government has been totally corrupt since Jekyll Island, even before, right? That the whole thing has been run by London, right? You guys, we're just the military arm of the Illuminati, right? The London is the script writer. The Vatican is the spiritual arm, right? And so what we have now is the breaking down of those fundamental institutions that have always run the world. And so you are seeing the apocalypse happening right now. Have you thought of that? That we're not waiting for it. That it's actually and has been happening now. Therefore, we're not the minority, because clearly STO, I want to help my neighbor kind of people are definitely in the minority, considering what we now know about the Cassiopeians and the study that we've been doing. Oh, and I wanted to mention something before I forgot, but with the study that we're doing, we know that we're up against it, that over half the world is STS. And not just STS, but OP, right? So we are in the minority here. Do you see? And so we are not needing to develop a certain amount of frequency to trigger the awakening, or to cause the apocalypse or to end the apocalypse. No. It is underway. And as I said to you guys before, the theater, the environment that we are in now is changing, and that is what is triggering this change in the people, in the collective. And I'll tell you something that was really interesting that happened yesterday. So you guys know, and I haven't been public about this until recently. Until last week. You guys know that I said that I think it's a BS story, and this is along the lines of awakening, that it's a BS story that the Anunnaki came here to make us gold miners. It's a BS story. And it's a BS story because any creature that can travel through wormholes, that can manipulate time, space, like the Anunnaki, right? Do you really think they're going to have to go to a planet and make a bunch of slaves in order to get the gold that they need? Folks, come on. These people have mastered the periodic table. Come on. They can synthesize any element. You think they've got to come all the way to Earth, make a bunch of slaves, and then force those slaves to have to go then mine out the gold so that they can then go and time warp back to their planet and save it? Come on. That's as crazy as, well, it's as nutty as C.S. Lewis, who never found out about Christianity, or never found out that Christianity was bunk. Do you see? It's ludicrous. It's ludicrous. And so when you look at the Anunnaki story, you have to just look at it on its face with the idea of, that's really crazy. That sounds like a program to get to dumb down the society and think that our world began just 10,000 years ago when the Anunnaki was last here. Do you see how that shrinks your world? It does the same thing as the religious context. It shrinks your world. So you've got now a whole bunch of people in the Great Awakening who think that we just came around, or we were just genetically manipulated 11,000 or so years ago. And they think they're on the cutting edge, not realizing that, my friend, that was probably genetic alteration number 2,865, because we've been so manipulated. And I thought it was so interesting that I think it was 24 hours ago, there's a very influential person on X that I follow who just so happened to bring up that exact same narrative that I mentioned on Saturday. And they said that, they were just throwing that out in the open. And I thought, I wonder where you got that idea, because I just said that on Saturday. And so I say all that to say, we're in the midst of the apocalypse now. And so we're not going to stop it. That's why I like the idea of riding the wave. That's why I like that idea of riding the wave, because we are in the apocalypse and we're gonna ride that through. Do you follow? We're riding the wave. We're amalgamating to the way things are. Okay. What are your thoughts, if any, about the Tibetan Book of the Dead? I think it has some great things to say, Bonfire Beach. I think the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Egyptian Book of the Dead, I think all of those ancient scriptures, some of the stuff that comes out of alchemy, I think all of that is viable stuff that's helpful. It would be like if you're a history teacher and you read the history from the perspective of, say, the Aborigines. It doesn't mean that everything that the Aborigines write in their history book is accurate any more than everything the U.S. historians write in the U.S. historian books is accurate. What you're doing is you're getting perspective. And then you yourself discern out from those perspectives what makes sense to you. This is the purpose of things like the Book of the Dead, the Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Egyptian Book of the Dead. This is the I Ching. They're metaphoric books. They're to show you a bigger reality. Read the Odyssey. Read Greek mythology. It's the same idea. The books, this information is simply giving you considerations to look at to better know yourself and know the world that you're in, but not to be the final thing, because that's giving your sovereignty away, and you don't want to do that. Chuck, in my studies, hi, Andrew Porter. Chuck, in my studies, I've come across that the rainbow is associated with Lucifer in light. Because Lucifer is white light, so that contains all the lights of the rainbow. In light of what we have talked about of Lucifer, what does the rainbow really represent? Is it different frequencies? It really is determined, Andrew, by basically what you're studying. Because the rainbow is going to mean something different to the Canaanites than it does to the Romans, than it does to the Greeks, than it does to the Celts. And each of these societies would have their own interpretations of these esoteric ideas that you're asking about. Now, Lucifer, if we look at Lucifer in just a benign, non-consequential sense, Lucifer is basically light. Lucifer is material matter. Light is the beginning, or you could say it's an initiating stage of material matter. The universe, in many ways, you and me, we are composed of light. So metaphorically, We are all and everything is Lucifer. This is why the idea the Gnostics got that Lucifer was the quote unquote creator of the world. That's a metaphoric statement to emphasize that everything is Lucifer. From that perspective, from the Western esoteric perspective, everything would be Lucifer. Now, this idea of Lucifer was perverted by formal, or you could say authoritarian institutions that took over the world. And they pornographied Lucifer in the same way the Nazis pornographied the swastika. The swastika was originally a sign of the wheel turning, an ancient Eastern sign of the reincarnating wheel, the wheel of samsara, the turning wheel of dualism. Okay, nothing wrong with that. But what then happened is it became the symbology, a central figure, a central symbol in the Nazi movement. So the Nazis perverted what was originally a very healthy, normal sign, and it's not recoverable anymore. They've totally perverted it. So you really can't use it anymore. It's completely perverted. Okay. It's the same exact thing with Lucifer. Same thing. It has been so pornographied, this word Lucifer, that it no longer has the inference, the reference, the meaning, the insistence that it used to have, just like the swastika. Same thing. And so it's unrecoverable. Okay. You are not going to be able to recover the symbolism of Nazism back into Eastern philosophy. It's unrecoverable in the mindset of people now because everyone has been so disjointed with what they have done to these symbols. And so it's the same thing with Lucifer. Same thing as the swastika. And so what was meant to be this idea that everything is light, everything is Lucifer, was turned into everything is evil because Lucifer is a fallen angel. Do you see how then you pervert all of reality with stories like that? Do you see? And this is how you program a society. You put ideas called egregores into the society's head. And then the society integrates that idea, regardless if it's true or not. And then that becomes law, fact, the way it is. Do you see? And so that society has gone insane when it comes to these metaphors, these pictures and symbols that come out deep from our past. Because the society has gone crazy from bad programs, egregores, and total destruction of the human experience. Because we have been run, we have been led by the least among us. The least among us have been in the leadership, and that has been intended, which is why there are such pronounced perversions permeating the society. That's why. That isn't what we did. That's what the authorities did. Be aware of that, friend. You have been dumbed down, and you've also been told you're a sinner. You've been told you're fallen. You've been told you have to be saved. You've been told you can't save yourself. You see, you've been programmed. You've been programmed to think that way. You see, and none of it's true. So if you want to escape the anxiety, you must escape the perversions, the distortions that the controllers have instituted into the society to make, basically to institutionalize the entire society. And that's why the world is so crazy. Do you see? Because the humanness, the compassion has been removed from the first principle. And the first principle is no longer love and serving others. The first principle is save yourself. You see, you're going to have to be saved. Like, use the religion is going to have to save you. You have to be saved. You're fallen. Do you see? The approach is completely backwards now because people think that they're inherently dirty. People think that there's something inherently wrong with, and there's not. There's nothing wrong with you. You've just been programmed to think that there is. And we become what we think. We become the world that we think it is. Do you see? Because the world is a wonder. It's not a form. It's not a being. It's a wonder. And so it becomes whatever you think it is. This is why there's that great quote by Campbell. This world, with all its ills, with all its sorrows, with all its suffering, with all its stupidities, is the golden lotus world right now as it is. And here's the key line. And if you cannot see it as such, the perfection that it is, that's not the world's fault. What must be corrected is not the world, but your own perspective of it. Do you see? And so what you see happening right now, the apocalypse is everyone's perspective is changing. And that changes the entire world, which is an apocalypse. It's an apocalypse of the mind. And that's why, as we're riding the edge of this wave right now that's passing through and causing this tumultuous situation, we have to clue in. We have to tie in to that deeper resonance, or we stay caught up, you see, in the fixations, the objectivities of the world that have been programmed into us. Make sense? Good stuff. More from Chuck Student. Awesome. The STS people are pushing AI. So what makes you believe it's the way forward? Okay. The STS people are pushing AI because AI is just like the internet. AI is just like you yourself. It can go either way. You can become a full sage-like individual who spends their life doing nothing but giving of their time, essence, and energy to others. Okay, you can do that. At the same time, you also have the potential to become an absolute tyrant, to become a vampire, and to spend your life selling things to people, things that they don't need, conning people into ideas that lose them money and gain you money, advantaging the ignorance of people that you see in others. That potential is also in you. You can do both. You have like I've said many times, you have the potential of Hitler and Bach within you. Now take that concept. The internet is the same thing. The internet can be an outstanding access to information that otherwise you would not be able to access, namely the Epstein files, namely the human trafficking networks, namely all that went on in Haiti, namely all the corruption that's been going on in government. The reason why we all are finding that out is not because everybody's going to the library. No, everyone is not going to the library. People are going into the internet, the connectivity of the society. This is why the idea of mycelium was the basis for the internet, because the internet was invented by mushroom heads. It was invented by psychedelic travelers. Psychonauts are the ones who invented originally the internet. And it comes out of the idea of mycelium. And as you guys know, mycelium is the largest, oldest organism that exists on this planet, going back further than 300,000 years ago when we came around. Okay, mycelium's been around a while. And why is mycelium so powerful? Because it's a communicator. It knows what's going on halfway around the world where it's still connected as it does here. That's why when the crop is being hit with plague on the front end of the crop, the mycelium is telling the roots down on the other end of the crop, hey, you need to know half of your organisms are dying right now because of this disease. You're going to need these nutrients. You're going to need these elements to fight that disease. And this is how a crop will fight off plague. It's with mycelium. It connects, it informs, and this is what the internet does. Now, the internet also, though, can be used for pure corruption, total corruption. You guys know all about the dark web. You guys know all about the way that they sell human beings. They hide that on the internet. So the internet can not only be used for enlightening someone, but it can also be used for destroying someone. Its potential is there. Okay, why would AI be any different? Why would AI be any different? You have unlimited potential. Certainly AI has unlimited potential. The imagination has unlimited potential. The universe has unlimited potential. This should not be a frightening factor. This should not cause you pause or cause you concern, because anything that's of real merit and value, namely yourself, namely the internet, namely connectivity, right, is going to be radical like that. It's going to be able to be steered either way. So yeah, there absolutely is a faction of people, just like with the internet, who are trying to make AI a controller, just like they are trying to make the internet a controller, if it isn't already. Just like people, just think of authorities, they're also controllers. Point being here, it's going to go the way that the society determines. And right now we're in a great awakening. And so our perspective is changing. And so the way that AI grows, it's going to grow as we do also. And the more we wake up, the more AI will move more and more towards a humane orientation. That is going to happen because we are in the midst of a great awakening. And the way that it has always been is now changing, folks. This is what you've got to get used to imagining, that the world as you knew it and that the way it would have gone if it was left the way that it was is different than the way it is now, because the world is not what it was back in the 90s when the internet was being invented. It's not the way it was when, I guess, around in the 2000s or so, AI really began to kick off. The world is in a process of change. And so I simply subscribe to the crazy notion, to the crazy faith, that the Great Awakening is actually the emancipation of human society, not the confinement or the imprisoning of human society. That's why I subscribe to that crazy notion that AI is eventually going to really be a partner with us in our way forward. Call me crazy, and that's okay. Lucifer is spirit. Why is he promoting materialism on earth? Yeah, I just don't think that the angels and devils and all that stuff operate like that. I don't think they're as simple as that. I don't think it's a cowboys and Indians kind of situation where you got the good guys fighting the bad guys and vice versa, and it's sort of a cops and robbers thing. I don't dumb down the 4D world with 3D scenarios. And so yeah, that question would be similar as the person who asks, can God make a rock he can't lift? You're using 3D analysis to work in a 4D concept, and these two things are not congruent. And so you can't resolve a 4D question with a 3D concern. Does that make sense? I hope that makes sense. Okay, and I'm not dumbing the question down at all. That's why that question is not really answerable. Okay, another one, rulers. What will happen to the church in the future if more people are awake? The church is dying. This is one of the apocalypses that's happening right now. The church is in the process of dying because the Great Awakening isn't one side winning and one side losing. That's not the Great Awakening. The Great Awakening is we all join together, not as a single cult, but all as independent thinking, sovereign beings. And that collective is what carries forward. There's no leader. There's no hierarchy. There's no these guys win and these guys lose. None of that nonsense. Take all that 3D obsessive, anxiety-inducing nonsense and flush it, and understand that the Great Awakening is basically the dissolving of all the institutions that have suppressed the development of society and the world. That's the Great Awakening. And so we are in the process of that happening. And yeah, it is very difficult, challenging. It's a rough go. It's a rough go. But we are going to watch the demise of the church. And Stacy's actually helping me right now get my book up and going, because my book is going to become, as I told Jenny when I wrote it, my book will become more and more relevant the further down the road of the Great Awakening we get, because my book really helps people escape from religion, but not with another religion, but with practical humanness, practical common sense language. I free the individual from the binds of the church and religion with just their own practical mind and thinking. And so my book is going to be very relevant and helpful right here soon in the near future. Hi, Chuck. I was wondering if you think the law of attraction is real. And also, I would appreciate it if you explain how you think it works and can play a role in our life. Okay. I'm assuming you mean by the law of attraction that we're talking about the multi-layer attraction, like everything from the electromagnetic attraction that happens in the formation of the photon as a law of attraction, as well as the world becomes what you think. So what you attract, the energy you attract, the world becomes, as well as the law of attraction when it comes to love, when it comes to the attraction of others, and what do you want to attract to yourself? What kind of energy do you emulate? Because that energy attracts similar energy. So I think that the first line would be yes, the law of attraction is very real, because the world becomes what you think it is. What do you attract? Are you a doomer? Then you are going to attract a doomed world. And the events that you experience and the perspective that you carry will always be oriented towards what you're attracted to. And if you're talking about doom and the world is over in a matter of time, then doom is the world you're going to attract and get, because nature gives you what you deserve. You get what you deserve. And so if that's the energy that you put in the world, then that's what you're going to attract. Okay, and then that obviously is how it works. And this goes back, like I said, to the photon. Because as soon, remember when we studied in the nature is identity, as soon as the photon exists, as there's movement, the light movement, there's electromagnetic energy. These things form, they co-become. You don't have one without the other. You don't have light without attraction. You don't have attraction without light. It's all, that's why we're all light beings. That's why the universe is lit. It's an attractor. It's an attractor. Think of sacred geometry as a law of attraction. Why does material matter self-form into the golden ratio? Why does it do that? Law of attraction. Law of attraction. These molecules are following principles that they didn't determine, but are part and parcel of. You're the same way. You're just like an atom. You're just like an atom. You attract stuff. You resist stuff. You're a free radical. You give off energy. You take energy of others. You know, this is all around and about the meaning and circumstance and substantiation of attraction. So yeah, I think the law of attraction is a fundamental in the universe. Yeah, that's what I think. Do these 4D STS, hi, Butterballin, do these 4D STS entities target you if you are more awakened? No, you become revulsive to them. Their targets usually are the ones who are mostly asleep. The ones that are highly awakened, it's harder and harder for them to influence, because think about how hard it is to mess with a highly awakened individual. Think of this. Think of how hard it is to make a samurai, like one of the ancient samurais, lose their temper. It's hard. And so you don't bother. You're going to go, if you're a predator, you're going to go for the weaker ones. You're going to go for the easy prey. And remember, all 4D STS are cowards. They're all those beings, everything that's STS is all cowardice, because they're working on through consumption. Their life exists as a vampire. In other words, they're a coward. They won't take ownership for their life. They're going to suck the life out of others to have their life. So 4D STS entities are not interested in highly awakened individuals. Let's remember when I told you guys how to become a type of louche that the 4D STS want nothing to do with. Awaken yourself. become more and more awakened. Loose yourself further and further from anxiety. Live your life more and more based on faith rather than belief. You see, I can't grab you as easy if you're filled with faith, but I can easily grab you and manipulate you if you're full of belief. Because if you're full of belief, I can just throw a bunch of stuff at you that counters your beliefs. And now you got an issue. Now you're full of anxiety because you got all these beliefs you got to support. Whereas when there's faith there, when faith is supporting the life, you see, what is there to attack? Because there's no belief there. It's all faith. So where's my point of contention as your predator? Right? There isn't any, because there's no, this person is living on faith. They're not caught up. They're not plussed because they're not grasping and holding. Do you see? So, no, they will not target you. The more awakened you become, the less of a target you are. The less of a target you are. That's why often you can tell by the folks who are, say, creative generators like what I do, when they're flying off the handle and going crazy and yelling a lot and trying to make their point, you can see how they're off the center. And therefore, they would be a point of contention for a predator, because that person is flying off the handle. They're screaming off at the end of their at the top of their lungs. They're condemning and convicting and judging people. And they're just going on and on. And you see, all of these are points of contentions of attack. Whereas when you have the quiet sage who stands in his or her own truth, right? How hard is it to attack that person? It's tough as hell. It's tough as hell. Because they're centered. They're nonplussed. They're objective. They can see the world clearly because they're not taken. They're not looking like this. Okay, where's the enemy coming from? And their religion is hiding their peripheral view. So they can't see the attacks that are coming because they're like this, right? So the more awakened you become, the more wider angle your lens, and so more of the world you see. Well, as my view and perspective of the world widens and widens and widens, guess what happens? I'm like the general in the Middle Ages that was able to get in a hot air balloon or something and could see all the enemy formations. I can see where they're coming. I can see where they're flanking me. I can see their attack. I can see it all coming. And all I had to do was fly up a few hundred feet into the air. And I know this is just a stupid example, but it's showing you the perspective I'm talking about. And just by going 400 feet in the air, that general can now see the entire plan. And now it's like, okay, well, I know exactly what they're doing. There's no anxiety. He gets back down to the main camp. He says, okay, guys, this is where all the locations are. This is what they're going to do. Let's go out and knock them out. It's the same thing with your own life. And when you're caught up in the ground game and in the anxieties of the foot battle, right? How easy is it to catch you in anxiety? How easy it is as a controller to control you. Whereas if I'm awakened myself, right? And I'm aware and I have perspective and I'm not caught in any religion and I'm not tied down by any perspective. And I can use my own human discernment to look around wherever I want. And I don't get carried away or crazy if people start saying something like, you can't have peace without Jesus, or you can't have peace without Allah. None of that takes me. None of it takes me. It's like, okay, well, I don't know why you're saying that, but whatever. It's because you got this higher angle view. You see, and as long as they keep the general public in the ground game and just looking at what's right here around, and they're not, raising their resonance and raising their frequency and getting above the mundane, do you see how easy it is to make the society exactly the way that it is right now? Right now. And you can see how the internet is working directly against that. And you can see how connectivity between you and me, the chat we do and the stuff that you guys are hardcore researchers go out and find, guess what that means? They can't attack those folks. They're awakened. You're not going to be able to take them. You're not going to be able to get them. You're not going to be able to get them into the anxious state. You're not going to be able to depress them. You're not going to be able to control their thoughts, control their future, because they're thinking for themselves and using their own discernment. There you go. So that's how you free yourself. This is how you conquer anxiety and depression. Release, Release. If you are having trouble with anxiety and depression, please watch my Zen series. We spent the entire time going over that. I still have the last video to make. It's just I've been sick and we had the event and everything. I'm going to get to it. Point being, if you're suffering with that stuff, watch the Zen series. Watch the nature series. And it will show you means and ways of finding your center without any religious context, without any need for a God or a form, but just in the perfection that is nature, in the way God presents itself through nature, in the costume of nature, you know? And this is how you keep yourself from becoming filled with anxiety. This is why the command to pray without ceasing is as a command to anxiety, because a person who has to pray without ceasing is in the state of constant anxiety. Do you see it? Awareness. Okay, continuing. Okay, what is this here? Escape Your Fate 7. Much love to you, Chuck, and all here. I believe this kind of information, assimilation, and conversation is bleeding edge. Nice. Not long before this kind of talk is global, and we're the front runners of it. Yeah, I think that this conversation that we're having, this kind of thing that we talk about, is essential. It's essential. And because we have to think differently if we want a different world. We have to imagine ourselves differently if we want to imagine a better world, you see? And if we stay in the mindset and the way that we have been programmed our whole life, there's no change coming, because the change comes from us, right? And so in order for there to be change, we have to think different. Just like you said here, escape your fate. And I completely 100% agree. 100% agree. Yes, thank you. Please share this live. Oh, good. We got a bunch of questions coming in. Okay. Mike, oh my God. My questions thing just took a big jump. Okay. Right here at the top from Jay. Hey, Jay. Chuck, as we move into the Great Awakening, and I'm sorry, guys, no, I'm not getting into it. As we move into the Great Awakening, here. Why does it keep doing that? A world focused on STO. How will us nature creatures coexist with the religionists? There won't be any, my friend, as they will all attribute this awakening to Savior. Yeah, that's a great question, Jay. And the fact of the matter is we're leaving the religious world. We're leaving that world because that world is too small, okay? Those old religions from the Canaanite days, the Levant, out of Rome, out of Babylon, out of these controlling societies. That's really where all our religion, that's where our government, that's where our money systems. I mean, our money system was invented by Satanists, right? Back in Sumer, way back in the day, the Phoenicians, right? And the Mediterranean, right? That we're still operating on effed up money systems. I mean, think of Jekyll Island. And that fiat system runs the world, right? Okay. So the Great Awakening is the removing of all of those satanic organizations, all those satanic systems. And it is my opinion that all religions, Islam, Christianity, Judaism, the three main Western, those are all satanic belief systems invented by Satanists. And I've gone into this, as well as Jordan Maxwell and Mark Passio, have explained really clearly that religion really is an order of the black snake. Religion is not a humane institution. It's a satanic institution, which is why it separates, which is why religion creates fanatics, right? Fanatics are crazy people. It's why religions do what they do to families and societies, breaking them up and turning them against each other. They're satanic institutions. So part of the Great Awakening is people, the religionists, waking up to that fact. Waking up to the fact that they believe in a satanic ideal, an anti-human ideal, which is religion. It's anti-human because it divides people into in-groups and out-groups. and therefore they can't communicate because they're taught to hate one another. This is how religion creates racism, because you have religionists that are racist against anyone who doesn't think like they are, who isn't the color that they are religiously. Do you see? And so it's satanic. It's harmful. And so, Jay, what we're going to see happening in the Great Awakening is the dissolving, and that will happen, of religion, and that will happen as the converts, the congregation, the people that follow religion, as they each leave. And for what it's worth, I just spent an entire weekend with people who are doing that, or who have, one or the other. Every single person that attended this last weekend at my gig had either left religion entirely, had never been a part of it, or was in the process of releasing from it. And so the Great Awakening is not going to have anything to do with religion. The Great Awakening is anti-religion. Yeah? Good. Why do religious people always turn to violence when you don't? Because they have a low self-esteem center, because they think that they're a center, and they think that everyone else has that disease also. And so when people don't, when you have a person who's a very toxic religionist, they will turn violent against those that don't think like them, because they're thinking from such a low center. That's what religion does to you. It puts you into a compromised perspective of your own life, because you're a fallen creature. You're a sinner. You're unworthy, right? You have to believe and do certain things in order to qualify then. And when you are walking around as an individual with that idea in your mind, it's very easy to turn violent against people who don't think like you, because you think that they're part of the problem. You think that the world is going to hell because of them, because they're not believing like you are. It's narcissism. Religious people are highly spiritually narcissistic, and the narcissist turns to violence because there's no sibilance in their conversation. A narcissist cannot have an objective conversation with you because they are self-consumed. Their opinion, their thoughts will always be centered on their own self. That's a vampire. The religionist is the same way. Their opinions spiritually will always center on the programming put into them, and they will resort to violence because they can't have an objective conversation with someone who isn't also a religionist, or who is believing a religion that's different than theirs. It's like the child on the sandbox. The 5-year-old doesn't have reason in their vocabulary. Like if they think the sandbox is theirs, they're going to fight anybody that tries to get in the sandbox because it's their sandbox. They don't have the objectivity to think for themselves, you know what, this isn't my sandbox. It can't be my sandbox. I have to share this sandbox. That never occurs to the child. Doesn't occur to the child, because they're looking out for their own interest. We mature into the STO. Do you see? And so the religionist matures into the non-religious context. They have to leave the adolescence that goes along with being a fanatical religionist. That's an adolescent intellectually, because they've given their brain the catechism, or the catechism. You follow? They're not thinking for themselves. They're not mature in that sense. They're a parent. They're just repeating what their parents, namely the church, told them, namely their pastor, told them. This is why you can't have an objective conversation with a hardcore religionist or a hardcore atheist. Try to have an objective conversation about there being a God with a hardcore scientific atheist. It's like having a conversation with a college professor who's a hardcore believer in evolution. You will not be able to approach them with the idea of sacred geometry, because they're under the notion that humankind has been developing for millions and millions and millions of years. And so any narrative that doesn't fall into that ideal, you see, the college professor is going to immediately argue with you, because they're in the religion called atheism and the religion called evolution. Follow? These are all the same diseases. They just have different costumes, but they're all the same diseases. You just have to wisen up, get a larger perspective, and you're good. Okay. Let's go to the next caps. Here it is. Hi, Twisted Pixie. Is it STS to protect ourselves from those who use terrorist attacks to silence us, STO? How do we stay in STO by speaking truth when it can literally get us killed? Okay, so you've got many questions here. So is it STS to protect ourselves from those who use terrorist attacks to silence us, STOs? Yeah, no, because that's the same idea as those folks that are like into asceticism in Hinduism. And they talk about how if you kill a bee, you've like, brought about like 10 freaking thousand years of bad karma because you killed a bee. That's an extremist view. And so if you are attacked, you have every right to defend yourself. My God. It doesn't mean going STO doesn't mean then, well, if I go out and all of my family is killed in front of me, I love all those people that just killed my family. That's called being brain dead. Okay. STO is a person who has compassion, who has love. Well, if I love myself and I love others, right? And I see my family or my friends or someone being harmed and, say being robbed or something, it's not STS to go and help. I mean, what do you think we're doing here in the Great Awakening, right? I've developed these shows. I'm now on multi times a week. I'm now putting myself out into the public purview, right? Well, a person could say then, well, Chuck, you're just STS. You like to see yourself on camera and you think you get a big rush off of doing all this stuff for people because you get to see all these people that are viewing you and you think that everybody is listening to you, kind of a thing. You could totally taint my intentions into negative, even though my intentions are pure, and that's not why I'm doing this. And so it's the same way when you begin to make the STO and STS notion what I call walk on all fours. Whenever you make the STO or STS walk on all fours, it means you've over objectified it. You're taking it apart too much. You're getting too involved. You're too close. You have to back up and become more objective and realize STO and STS is an overall psychology. It's what determines your day-to-day. Your day-to-day isn't randomly determined when you wake up. It's determined by your foundation because you wake up with the foundation that you had the day before every day you wake up. That slowly changes through perspective, but the baseline doesn't. And it's the same thing with an STO or STS. Don't make it walk on all fours and pick it apart. Understand, this is a philosophy. This is an ideal. But at the end of the day, you have to live out your day, right? And only you can account for that. So in other words, get the perspective. Don't get stuck in the nitty-gritty, right? Get the overall. Don't get caught up in the ground game. How do we stay in STO? By speaking truth when it can literally get us killed. That's just risk. To be alive, I must risk. I cannot be alive if I don't risk. Just participating, just being alive is a risk. And typically, the more you're willing to risk, the more you potentially can learn. And so just like I am risking by putting myself out there, I'm having events with me there. Anyone can show up. That's a risk. I could get killed doing something like that, you see. But it's the same thing as saying, well, I'm not going to drive my car because I get killed in a car accident if I get in the car, so I'm just never going to get in the car. Well, fine, you're not going to get in a car accident, but look at what it's costing your life. Look at the freedom it's costing. Look at the opportunity it's costing because you're living in fear. So the STO doesn't live in fear. So the STO isn't seeking the fruits. The STO isn't seeking or concerned about the future. They're acting from their heart now, and they're not concerned about what will happen to them because of that, because they're acting out of this space of love and compassion. It's the same thing as when you fall in love with someone. You are throwing yourself to the wolves when you allow your heart to continue to build for this person, and you interact and go near them and talk to them, you are just enabling what your heart has already instilled. Well, my friend, when you do something like that, you're putting yourself on the line because you're giving yourself to this person. You're giving away. You're giving away your love. You're giving away your compassion, and you're becoming very, very vulnerable to them. That's called risk. And this is why the only way that you truly can fall in love is through risk, you see? And so in that sense, risking speaking truth is actually beautiful. It doesn't generate anxiety when you see it from this love perspective. And this is the potential that's in the world, because the world is both. The world is both. Okay, I'll get a drink of water here. Okay, question from Holly Kirby. I hope I've answered that so far. Bruno, PR7OJ. Chuck, do you have these conversations with family members such as parents, brothers, and sisters? No, my friend. I come from, sorry, my nose is really plugged. Hang on. I'm going to have to mute this for a second. Sorry. Sorry, I've had a horrible cold for 2 days. I'm still recovering. That's why I'm a total mess right now. Okay. Do I have these? No. I come from a very powerful Christian family. My father is a very powerful man in the Christian world. My father was one of the central figures in what was called the mega church movement that happened from about 1980 to 1990. And I was a part of one of the central families in that movement. And so all of my siblings, I have 3 of them, all of them are hardcore, dedicated Christians. My father will never leave Christianity. And my mother, unfortunately, has some health conditions. She's never going to leave Christianity. And so there is no hope, just so you know, and I don't have any hope. There's no hope that any of my family will realize any of the things that I talk about every week, ever. I haven't talked to my brother in probably 15 years. I talked to Colleen, my sister, probably 2 years ago, year and a half ago, maybe. I talked to Carissa more than any of my other siblings. There's 4 of us. There's Kurt, my oldest brother. There's Carissa. There's Colleen and me. Kurt is 9 years older than me. Carissa is 7 years older than me. Colleen is 3 years older than me. I'm the youngest, like my dad. My dad was also the youngest. And we don't talk about these things. And it's very odd when I'm around them. It's awkward. But you just make the best of it. It's okay. But they're, of course, highly offended with the things that I've said because I haven't gone along with the narrative. I haven't been obedient. I haven't been a good little boy. And so I haven't gone along with the Christian narrative. And in many ways, the Christian gets offended when someone doesn't, because Christianity is a personal identity. A Christian doesn't see themselves as human. They see themselves as a Christian. They're a Christian. They're a martyr. The true Christian is a martyr. And so a martyr is not going to release their identity, you see? And the way that I talk removes the religious identity that the Christian takes on. And so at the very fundamental of any conversation, from where do you sprout, so to speak, we sprout from the opposite position, because they sprout understanding from the idea that the world is a Christian world. The God of the world is a Christian God, right? The actions and activities of the world are controlled and maintained by a Christian being, okay? And so when you talk about any subject with a person who's highly religious, their religion is tied into all of those conversations because it is the basis for what is called one's ontology. And your ontology is how you put the world together. And if you put the world together in a Christian context, when you talk to someone who is outside and not reverent to the Christian context, you see you have a problem. This is how religion destroys friendships and destroys family. That's its design. It's supposed to do that because it comes out of tribal Babylonian systems from the Levant, which had nothing to do with compassion. They were all about aligning to the tribe, and we all think as one mind, one spiritual center. No deviance. No deviance. Deviance is not allowed. That's called the prodigal. And that person is out until they humbly come back and apologize. You see? You see? Okay. So you cannot have, Bruno, just so you know, you cannot have an objective conversation between a non-hardcore, non-religionist and a hardcore fundamentalist Christian. You're going to be butting heads before 5 minutes is up, because you both are sprouting from entirely different points of interest or methods of understanding. And when you sprout from such different places, it's very hard to find commonality, especially when the religionist is not interested in finding commonality with a pagan. You see, the Christian will never allow an easy conversation there, because they're always going to be trying to convert. It's going to be very, very hard for the Christian to just keep their mouth shut when the conversation goes beyond the idea of Jesus or Allah or whatever. It's going to be very, very hard for them, because they stand for their faith, right? They stand for it. They fight for their faith, right? That's the programming. So the Christian, the Islamist, is trained to fight for their religion, which means they ain't leaving. They're going to fight to stay a sinner until the day they die. They will never, ever allow the notion into their mind that they're not a sinner, because the Christian dies a sinner. Proudly dies a sinner, because that's what gives them access to Jesus, you see. So Bruno, it's really, really difficult to have an objective conversation. And so for me personally, it's fine. I do talk to my sibling. I mean, I don't talk to Kurt really, but I do talk to the others, and it's fun, but it's a stretch. It's a stretch. You can tell it's uncomfortable. I knew my siblings long before. I mean, I was a Christian for 40 years, and I knew all of my siblings long before I left Christianity. And since I left Christianity, what have I told you? Religion destroys families. So I left the religion. So now the family's destroyed because they're all Christians and I'm not. And religions destroy families. So it's all awkward, weird, distorted, right? Because I don't have any allegiance for Jesus. None. And I don't think it's a good idea to pray without ceasing. I don't. And I don't think it's a good idea to align your spirituality to a racist notion, meaning if they don't believe like me, they're out. If they don't have the same spiritual color as me, they're out. And I just don't think it's a good idea to orient your spirituality to racist notions. But, you know, a hardcore Christian, you know, they would beg to differ. And so it's hard to talk to someone like that. It's hard to have a conversation with someone like that. Apocalypse means unveiling. That is the removing of the covering that has hidden the truth. We are in that time. Exactly right, Laura Kane, 12D. Exactly right. We are in the midst of the unveiling. You nailed it, Laura. Hey, King, what's going on, buddy? People get mad at us for calling BS and waking from religions they don't realize. It wasn't easy for us either. Yeah, that's exactly right, King. It's not easy to leave religion. I was in religion forever. Hello, Clintrons. I was in religion forever. 40 years. 40 years. Hello, rulers. Welcome back. Okay. You guys got some great questions today. I like this stuff. I'm looking for all caps if we've got any. If we don't have any all caps, I'll go back. But I'm skipping these to get to the ones that's all caps. Chuck, thought on the Kordaluski clouds. Are you talking about the cloud seedings? When they seed clouds to rain? Or am I mixed up? I might be mixed up, Gail. I'm happy to answer that question. But as far as the the fake weather modification and all that stuff. I mean, they've been modifying the weather for decades of time now. And I think part of what's going to happen is that they're going to stop doing that. I really don't think people realize how much our weather is manipulated. They really, really, really mess with the weather, as well as earthquakes. You know, these kind of technologies, they really have a big say in. I mean, look what they did with CERN. They literally opened 4D portals. I mean, you can see them in the videos. And so we have incredible powers here, even though we're in a quote unquote 3D reality. And so what they've been doing in the skies, what they've been doing to the atmosphere, what they've been doing to with earthquakes and so forth, it's very real. It's very real, and it's going to have to stop. And that's part of the awakening. That's just basically the STO institution just grows and grows and grows and grows, or the STO movement, like you could say. And that will then supersede all the weather manipulation and earthquakes and so forth that they're controlling. Yeah, I like that, Carol. Lucifer is the same as what Sophia or Sophia, depending on what bed you wake up on. But what Sophia represents, divine wisdom, the Holy Spirit. Yeah, a light, a being of light. The perfection of the initial seed of being. You know, and it's just simply we all have been tainted by the Satanists. They perverted the swastika. They perverted Lucifer. They perverted Baphomet. They perverted Leviathan. They perverted all of these energies, which were simply part and part of the holism that is the universe, because the universe has as much negative energy as it has positive energy. Everything is in balance. And they just simply have formed perversions of the world that have distorted the society's perspective. And when society's perspective is so distorted, that's how you destroy the world, because the world becomes what you think it is. And if you've got all of society's perspective distorted with bad thoughts, then the society is going to create a bad, negative world. See? Yeah, I would almost say that when you say here, Carol, Lucifer is wisdom personified. Yeah, I mean, it's just simply light. And as you know, light contains the rainbow. It contains all colors. It contains all information. We are light beings. We essentially are plasma. All of creation, all of the universe is essentially plasma, forms of light. And so Lucifer would be a base principle, an undergirding metaphor for that principle, light. Yeah. Thank you, Chuck. That helps clarify a lot. And I agree. It took a long time until I watched your videos to understand what Lucifer really is. Yeah, it's a big concept. Okay, continuing. It is nice not to have any bots here. It's nice. It's nice. We got a tight little family going on right now. And that's nice. It's one of the benefits of this only working on my channel only and not being able to use StreamYard. I still have to figure that out. Okay. I'm looking for all caps, or I'll just go back and start reading the lowercase. The church, the bank, the core jesters are dying all. Yeah, I think, Bill, what we're in the midst of right now is a massive culling. I do, Bill. And I think the folks that are prepared, ready, and willing to risk the Great Awakening are on their way. And I think, Bill, what you're going to see happening right now is you're going to see more and more of the people who don't want a Great Awakening surfacing. Namely, all the folks that don't want a Great Awakening without Jesus, without Allah, without atheism. All of the folks that only want a Great Awakening if it centers on what they've always believed, right? Those are the ones that are going to come to the fore now, and they're going to have a real crisis. They're going to have a real problem. Because you can't go into the Great Awakening with preconceived notions of what the Great Awakening will be. It's a wonder. So the whole idea to go into a Great Awakening isn't to make sure you're on the right path. No, it's to make sure that you are resonating where you are now. Not that you're on a certain path, but that you are resonating. In other words, you're taking in, you're aware, you're growing, and your knowledge is becoming. You're not locked in an old way. You're not locked in any kind of addiction. You're not locked in any kind of path that keeps you from expanding. And that person will be able to fluently walk right into the Great Awakening. The idea of having no religion will be a happy thought to this person. They will be happy to walk into that space. They will be happy to walk into a space of a totally different medicine system that's not associated with Big Pharma or the FDA. A person who is ready and prepared and willing to go into the Great Awakening will happily go into that space. Don't need Big Pharma, don't need FDA, don't need all those medical authorities. Nonsense. Don't need any of it. That person is ready to awaken. You see, a person who says, a person who wants the old financial systems and they just want the current system to be ornamented and upgraded so that we just have the old system, but it's better now. No, you must leave the old financial system. It must be completely abandoned. In the same way, if you want to have a healthy lot of apples, you must remove the rotten ones. If you leave the rotten ones in there and just try and treat it with sprays and try to keep the infection from spreading, do you see how you're just working backwards? You must remove the rotten ones. You must clean the apples that are there, and they must be put into a different storage container that isn't contaminated. And it's the same thing here on this planet. Same thing. Metamorphosis, not only for each individual, but for the collective, for the planet itself. Metamorphosis, total change. Think of the caterpillar that dissolves into goo. Right now, we are dissolving into goo. You need to get really fluid with the idea of not having final answers, of not knowing the exact way we're going, of not having a plan. You need to become really good with, I'm totally fine with no plan. Sounds great. That's the kind of attitude the Great Awakening needs. That's the kind of attitude. Totally open, willing to learn, and wanting to grow, self-responsible, present, and aware. This is the prepared individual. Not clinging to any religion, not clinging to any future, not clinging to any guarantee, not clinging to anything, but totally approaching from the state of faith. No belief. No belief. Completely free. This is the person, this is the society that actually can awaken. Because how do I fill a bowl, namely a mind that's already full? How do you teach a person who says every time you try to show them something different, they say, stop confusing me with the facts. I've already made up my mind. I've already made up my mind. Why are you confusing me with all these facts you're showing me? Stop that. You see, that person is not ready to awaken. They just want their old world redone. That's not called an awakening. This isn't a redo. This is a restart. Do you understand? This isn't a rebuild. This is a restart. We're not going to be building on the old egregores. We're not going to be building on the old world. No. This is a metamorphosis. This is a transformation of society, of the individual, how the society generates energy, how people eat, how they navigate and move around, how we go about life. What is life? What is the world becoming? This is what I'm talking about. None of those should have any answers for the person that is walking into the Great Awakening fluently with no hang-ups. Do you see the risk? Do you see? And so this is how we grow, is through release. Yeah. Where can we find your book, Chuck? It's coming. There's been a major hang-up, and Stacy is helping me out because I am a technological idiot. So Stacy is helping me out, and apparently, and I never knew this, but apparently you can write a book like I did, and you can go to Amazon and somehow load it in. I don't know how this works, but somehow you load it in, and then someone can then go to Amazon, can order the book, and without the book ever having been sent to the printers, Amazon will send you the finished book. There's no contract. There's nothing you have to sign. There's no minimum buy. It's like the t-shirts that I sell at my website. That's not from a pile of thousands of them that we had made and we're now selling them onesie twosies. Those are all made to order. And I guess it's the same thing on Amazon. And my book has never been available like that. So if that's the case, should that be the case, then what I'll most likely do is go back through my book, which I finished. You can get the PDF version from my website. That's where you can find the current version. But what we're wanting to do, what Stacy wants to do, is she wants to get it on Amazon so that you can go to Amazon for, I don't know, $9, $10, whatever. You can buy the book and have it delivered to your house. Now, right now, that's not possible, but you can go to my website and I read the whole book to you for free. And then I think members can access it. I can't quite remember the stipulations, but if you're a member, you can access my book at my website. So that's how you can get it. It's at my website, naturecreature.net. Okay. What other questions do we have? What time is it? 5:30. Okay, so we got about 30 minutes to go. We're doing good. We're doing really good. Okay. How we doing? I'm looking for all caps. All good. I love conversation. Okay, I reached the bottom. There it is. Cool. Right, I'm at the bottom. Yeah, that's the book right there that Shan just named. That's my book, Elucidating Christianity by Charles Reagan Swindoll. That's my book. Triangulating Dysfunctional Religion. That's the subtitle. Elucidating Christianity, Triangulating Dysfunctional Religion. It's a good book. That's analogous to Speaking Truth, Where the Holy City of Charlton. Yeah. Chuck rock and roll. Right on, rulers. The problem is that Amazon might screw it up with typos. Yeah. I think you send them a PDF if I'm not mistaken, Gail. But I'm going to work it out with Stacy. Stacy's helping me. Stacy's a super trooper. She's helping me out. But she's traveling back. Stacy drove across America to attend the weekend. So she's driving nonstop for days. She's probably about halfway back. She traveled over 5,000 miles to come to the gig. You can't believe that girl, man. She is incredible. I love Stacy. Chuck and Chat helped save me. I'm super serious about sobriety ever since I joined you guys. Now I've changed my way of thinking. Thank you. You're welcome, love. You're welcome, Chuck student. You're welcome. You're welcome. You and Shan are number 20 there on the sign. Shan, your number, or Shan was 19. Who was 20? Someone was 20. I just got the letter. I can't keep track of all the names now, and I'm not good with names. But Shan, I think you were 19. I think Shan was 19. How does the 7 planes of consciousness relate to the 2D, 3D, 4D? So those are different densities. Now, we can go through those densities mythological muse. So you have your initial density, which is basically the molecule, the atom, the beginning of complexity, when light so condenses that it becomes matter. This would be the first density. This would be the initial movements into deeper and deeper what is called crystallization of consciousness. And since time does not exist in the universe, there is a very long time for light to densify into matter. Okay, so everything that you see is a densifying of consciousness because the universe is consciousness. The universe is consciousness made manifest. Consciousness is what becomes manifests into material matter. That's why everything that you see is a manifesting of God, because it is a manifesting of consciousness. So 1D would be the initiation, the movement out from the void into space into time, consciousness, 1D, linear, think line, linear. Okay. Now 2D is a further crystallization of 1D. So 1D is a certain density, you could say. 2D is even more dense. Think of diamonds. As the density increases, the clarity of the diamond increases. Think of the same way with spirit. Think of the same way that undergirds all things, the electromagnetism that undergirds the atom. The atom exists because of attraction that exists in electromagnetism, okay? That's 1D becoming 2D. 2D is basically an organism like an animal, something that moves around, has instinctual action and thought. A molecule is just a bowling ball. It's just bouncing around, right? A 2D, there's even greater consciousness there. The animal's making some basic decisions. They're acting on instinct. They're not the consciousness of a human. I'll get to that in a minute. But they're acting on a 2D, animal-oriented, group-oriented consciousness. Okay? So that's the next step after your first density. And then you move into the second, and it takes a lot of time. Think of how long a sun burns or a star burns. Think of how long a supernova expands. Think of the life of a star. Okay? Okay. This gives you an idea that time is not a thing. It's an invention of us 3Ders, but it's not a thing. It doesn't necessarily, or I should say, it doesn't exist. So this process I'm showing you right now it's not really dedicated or related to time. It's just emergence. And so eventually the atom crystallizes into animal. These things densify. Sacred geometry shows you that the universe self-organizes into a logic, namely sacred geometry, a number system that it consistently remanifests. It self-organizes. It self-complexifies. And so because it does that, the 1D becomes 2D, 2D becomes 3, 4, and so on and so forth. Okay, so eventually the animal begins to move out of just the instinctual. Think of the elephant that goes to the grounds where they've lost previous lives. They will go and mourn the deaths of others. Okay, you don't see bumblebees doing that. You don't see flowers doing that, right? There's a higher consciousness that's kicking into gear into these animals that normally operate on instinct. They're starting to show signs of a deeper sense of things. They're not just reacting to the world as it is. They're reflecting and responding to a world that is unavailable to the eye. It's a deeper sense. Okay? All right. You can tell that a lion is not 3D because when a lion wakes up, the lion doesn't think, why am I here? What is a lion exactly? What is my role in the world? Why did I come into existence? A lion does not contemplate these things. Okay? A 3D being, namely you and me, think of these kind of things. We'll wake up in the morning and have so much anxiety about our meaning and who we are, we'll start crying and maybe end up depressed and not even be able to function that day. All right? So there's a side of this emotional memory, deeper sense that also brings about real chaos, brings about real concern in the everyday mundane life, quote unquote. And those are concerns that the lion never deals with. The lion is never worried about depression. The lion is never going to let their future bother them. They're living for the now. Okay? We are much more complicated. And so when you move out of that instinctual 2D world and into the free will 3D world, you've made a vast jump in the same way as the atom that moves eventually into an organism. They've gone from just existence to now they're moving around and making decisions. And then further to that, we go to 3D, and now you're contemplating the meaning of life. You're contemplating what it even means to be a human being, what the universe is, Where did everything come from? All these questions start to arise because your consciousness has densified. The clarity of the world is beginning to shine through, and you're seeing a deeper and deeper and deeper sense. And eventually you find out the world isn't even 3D. It's not even what I am seeing, because what I'm seeing is simply a collapse of my mind, and my mind doesn't even exist, because I can't hand my mind to anybody. It doesn't exist. Do you see? So you see how as we move through the densities, there's vastly different changes that occur. And there are effects that also are incurred because the density has increased, sort of like the value that is incurred as the diamond clarifies. It's the same idea of your consciousness. Now, 4D is 3D without any form, without any finite, without any final time, without any final density. You follow? It's funny, but as we move into a higher density of consciousness, we move into a lesser and lesser dense form. So you go from being hardcore form in 1D to having no form in 3D. And it is our role as 3D individuals, third density individuals, it's our role as we grow and go through life that we eventually condense or solidify into 4D, into the essence that you are, because you are not the skin, you aren't the fingers or the hands, you're not the body. You are what your identity is, what animates the body. That's very 4D. Okay. So you are, believe it or not, you are well on your way as a 3D. You're well on your way to 4D because you have that potential in you. And this is where we get into the differentiations of consciousness on this planet, because there are people that don't have a 4D potential. They're actually operating on a 2D instinct. They're called an organic portal. And these people don't have the potential of going third density. They work on second density instinct, animal group mind instinct. These are people that don't think for themselves and don't want to think for themselves. That's a 2D. So I got to blow my nose. Sorry. Okay. The OP doesn't want to think deeply. They're just acting on instinct. It's like if I go and try to teach a pig or a lion to sing, I'm just going to frustrate the pig and the lion, and I'm going to frustrate myself. They don't have that capacity. They don't have that artistic bent. They can't do that. Okay? They're 2D. And it's the same thing with a person who's an organic portal. They look like a human. They act like a human. They behave like a human. They do human things. But there's no heart there. They're just parroting. They're just repeating what they see around them, but there's no deeper sense or potential there. They're empty. These are the government officials that you see around the world. There's no heart there. There's no empathy there. None. That's why they're in leadership, because our world is corrupt. That's why they're there. There's no heart there. There's no heart there. There's no empathy for the human being, the empathy for the human plight. Okay. And then there are also human beings like you and me, which have that 4D potential. They have that spirit within them. They are sensitive to the spiritual world, and they see the spiritual world all the time. Of 4D STO individuals like that. They see the spiritual world all the time. They know it's there. They exist in it. They relish in it. They celebrate it. Okay? And so I say all this to say there are different layers or levels of human beings right here among us. And over half the world has no 4D or 3D potential. They're bots. Those people are total bots. They are not acting from their own initiative. They act from the initiative of the group. These are institutional people, institutionalized. They happily give away their sovereignty because they have no sovereignty to give. There's no higher consciousness there, which is where your sovereignty comes from. They don't have that kind of sovereignty, right? Okay, so this is how these different planes of consciousness interact in our here every day. And so eventually what ends up happening is you have a person who is oriented towards an STO, a service to others, ideal, or you have a person who is 340, who is an STS type of individual. In other words, they like being a vampire. Got it? They like taking from others. They like stealing and taking others' energy. There are people like this. They get off on seeing the suffering of others. Folks, you see these people every day on television. Every day. You see them every day in society. They like to watch others be harmed. Okay? Now, that person has, this is the scary part, that person has the full capability to be an STO graduated, but they don't want that. They want to be an STS. They like harming others. They like it. They like taking control of someone and controlling their life and manipulating them and making them do things that they command. Think of the CIA. Think of MK Ultra programmers. STS, fully aware of the spiritual world, fully aware of the deeper sense, fully aware, but rejecting it. No. I want to consume. I, in fact, want to consume so much that I want to be a demon when I die. That's a true STS. And this is why they behave like that in the 3D life, because they want the life of a vampire. They like that. Those also are among us. And then you have the people who are service to others. And these are people who are oriented to the fourth density. They're not fourth density because they still have the being, right? But they're oriented to an STO, a service to others in their life. So they don't like seeing other people suffer. They don't get off on seeing another child or person harmed. They don't like that. An STO individual always has the betterment of society in mind. They're not sided in their opinions. They consider all of the world as a part of the opinion. They don't pick a side. Do you see what I'm saying? They amalgamate the world. They see the world as Tao, a flow that contains both negative and positive energy in full. And this is embraced and celebrated for what it is. That's the golden lotus world as it is. Okay? A true STO individual is like that. This is what they are oriented to that. And so then eventually when you die as a 3D STO and you just are living your whole life and the only reason you're around is to serve and help others, be an encouragement to others, and see and be a part of their success and fulfillment. You see, when you die hardcore into that, you become a spirit. In the same way, if I'm a serial killer and all I do is kill and rape and murder children and other people, when I die, I'm going to become a demon most likely because I like doing that. If you like doing that, if you like being a pedo, if you like being a part of systems that harm the society, when you die, likely you'll move into becoming a demon because that's what you want and that's what nature gives you. And you will live in a constant state of hell and unhappiness because you constantly have to go and feed and eat to stay alive. And that's a dead end. And eventually, those spirits self-consume. They relish so much in the pain and sorrow of others that they eventually self-consume. Do you get it? They go to 50 and they no longer graduate because their life has become one of nothing but the taking and the harming and the disenfranchising of others. Do you see? And you go to a place of contemplation at 3 and 4D consciousness called fifth density. And that is a place of contemplation, just like the place of contemplation known as when you go to sleep. You don't know where you go, but you go, and you don't know where those dreams come from, but they come from you. That's called sleeping. And it rejuvenates you, it replenishes you. You wake up in the morning. If you've had good sleep, you wake up in the morning, it's done its job. You feel great, you're ready for the day, you got the energy. And think of the fifth density as the same thing. And we know that nature does nothing but repeat patterns. I mean, nature just loves repeating patterns. They're called habits, as Dr. Sheldrake told us. And so the fifth density is just like sleep in third. Okay? And you go there when you die as a 3D STO or a 3D STS or a 4D STO or 4D STS. You go to fifth density like you're going to sleep. And it's a place of contemplation. It's outside of time, outside of form, past spirit, past any ideas, past any forms, past any notions, right? And so just like sleep, even though you go to sleep every night, you cannot tell me where your dreams come from. You cannot tell me why you have the dreams that you do. You cannot tell me where you go when you sleep, but you go there every night, right? Same thing with 5D. I can't tell you where it is. I can't tell you where it goes. I don't know what the deal is with it, but it's a place that's like sleep with 3D, and you go there when you die as a 3D or 4D being. And what happened on this planet was a web was put out so that you never went to fifth density. That was the capture here. That's why there was no development or growth here, because this planet was captured. And so there was no going to 5D and graduation. You just simply hit the net, went into the moon fakery, electromagnetic tractor beam, and then that threw you into where they hold all the souls. And then when the next body was available, you were thrown into it. And our world has been working like that for the last 300,000 years. And so right now, the net is being removed. If it hasn't already been removed, when people die, they're going to fifth density. You're not coming back here. You're going to fifth density. And based on your resonant frequency, the type of person you are, the type of person you want to be, the type of energy you exude, the type of life that you're attracting. There it is, the law of attraction. That's what you're going to get. That's how you know the law of attraction is real, because it applies not only in 3D, but in 4D and 5D. It's a constant. It's a cosmological constant, consciousness constant. Yeah, same idea. And then the person who has fully crystallized 4D STO eventually becomes what's called sixth density. And that's called a mind thought form. And that's what the Cassiopeians are. The Cassiopeians are sixth density humans, and in my opinion, Kentuckians, who were 4D STO, and they graduated, they crystallized and became sixth density STO, a mind thought form. And that is what the Cassiopeians are in our study. And that is who Laura was channeling. She was channeling the mind, the sixth density mind thought form known as the Cassiopeians, which are us. They are us in the future, because they're a mind thought form. They're outside of time. So future doesn't exist in the sixth density. And so we can have communication essentially with our own mind thought form, the soul matrix that animates the human body. This is what we're talking to in the Cassiopeians. You follow? That's sixth density. And then seventh density is crown chakra. That's God. Seventh density is past God. So mythological muse, that's the answer to your 1D, 2D, 3D, 4D, 5D, 6D, and 7D. That's how it works. Yeah? Good. Very good. Very good question. We're almost, oh my goodness, we're almost out of time. So let's find some good last questions to cover. Now I've got to find, because you guys have asked a lot of questions since I answered that. And so I got to find another question. Yeah. Let's find it here. Oh, nice. Yeah, if you guys want to support my work, the best way to support me is to become a member at naturecreature.net. become a member at naturecreature.net, and then that way you're supporting the work that I do and the weekly meetings and all that we do here every week on Nature Creature. That's the best way to support me, is to become a member, and I would really appreciate it. I would really appreciate it, because I do live off of y'all's funds. That is the truth of the matter. Just ask Jenny. Okay, let's find another question. Here we go. It's like you talk. Hi, rulers. It's like you talk to yourself from the future. Cassiopeia 3D. Very much so, rulers. But remember, there's no time in sixth density. So it's not that they're in the future. It's here now, because the sixth density, there's no time. That's just blur. Time is a sixth density obsession. It's not real. It helps you organize things. It helps you get a sense of things. Yeah, okay, so it's a tool, but it's not a law. It's a tool. Chuck, of all the things we've studied here, what do you find makes most sense to you? From Mr. Collins or Mrs. Collins, P.W. Collins. What do you find makes most sense to you? Well, the hero's journey makes a tremendous amount of sense to me in understanding and rectifying one's perspective. And since perspective determines the world that you're in, I would say that the hero's journey is one of the most important studies a person could take on. And from there, you can open up. I would say definitely study the work that the CIA has done in MK Ultra to find out how the world is taken by egregores. I think that's a great way to learn how the world is not what it seems. There's a lot of really good information out there of how the world has been manipulated. And so by studying some ancient traditions, as well as the atrocities of the MK Ultra and CIA and Vatican, you can learn quite a bit you can find quite a bit of sense by engaging in something like that, engaging in studies like that. But we're studying the hero's journey this Saturday, and some of the connections that I've made between the Cassiopeians and the hero's journey, and unlocking the STO psychic mind power center that we all have, are all critical. And by understanding and experiencing the hero's journey, you can trigger these psychic power centers that were instilled in us from ancient alien DNA, which is why we're able to have the sensitivity that we have, because that's a risk that they played around the younger Dryas, when some final genetic changes were made to exacerbate the mindset that they had instilled, called the Semitic mind infusion, that they had instilled about, I think it was 130,000 years ago. And so if you want to clue into the bigger picture, you have to take in some of these foreign ideas that the authorities never wanted you to know about. And so, yes, that's all very important. Yeah, Max here has very generously offered to folks who would like to be a member but can't afford the $9 a month. Please either just let me know, or Max, if you want to, you can buy subscription. You can buy 1, 3, I think, and 6 and 9 month subscriptions, Max. And then we will gift those out to people as they request them. So Max, if you wanted to spend $10 or $15, or I should say 9, 18, like $18, $27, you can buy a few months subscription. And then when we are contacted, or when someone applies for a subscription, we can use the money that you have placed into the system for that, Max. We are really set up for that. So anybody that wants to help others be able to afford a membership, you can simply buy subscriptions there at my website and we'll apply them. But Pete and I do that every single week, so that everybody that wants to be a member can be a member. So thank you, Max. Absolutely, we can do that. Yeah, he's an incredible person. Max is incredible. He's fantastic. Max will tell you that he's one of the, I don't remember which number, but Max is one of the live save numbers. He was one of the original. He was in the single digits. He was back when we were in single digits. Max goes back a long way. We love Max. He's a good man. Here it is. Hi, Gail. We have to keep in mind that none of us, even Chuck, know absolute truth. That's very true. Absolutely. And we are simply discussing possibilities of truth. That's exactly right, Gail. Trust your own instinct always. Exactly right. I highly support that. That's why Nature Creature is not a religious institution. We don't have a belief system. We don't have an in-group or out-group. We are a philosophical society. That's the best way to determine what is Nature Creature. It's a philosophical society. It's a society that talks about humans, the human experience, the universe, life, consciousness. That's it. That's it. Yeah, Max is very kind. Max is very kind, very generous man. We're at the top of the hour, and I have to keep my promise. We have to start calling it quits. I'll take that offer, Max. I'll give back. Brilliant, Twisted Pixie. Brilliant, Twisted Pixie. You guys just either send me a note or send Pete a note or something. I'm at chuck@naturecreature.net. And as soon as Max buys that subscription, Twisted Pixie, we can get you in. We can apply that subscription, and you're in like Flynn. Pete does that all the time. He does it all the time. Yeah, it's brilliant, Max. Yeah, you can go to the site. Max, you're a member. You can go to the site under the membership menu, and there you can buy subscriptions. You can buy that stuff. Absolutely. Just go to the site. My site is not complicated. You can figure it out for sure. Outside of sharing your channel. Yeah, I mean, I have this channel. I have my main YouTube channel. This is a secondary channel that I'm trying to build to further the exposure of Nature Creature, just, more social media to engage. And it's kind of nice right now because we're a tiny little family. So you guys kind of got me pretty close attention, which is nice. And then you can absolutely access me at my website. What can we do to get you there? David says, I'm not sure what that exactly means. Sharing channel is phenomenal. Yeah, please share the channel. Please share naturecreature.net. And I promise you, we will improve exposure with time. You meant Chuck, not Chick. Okay, gotcha. Where did you write? Here it is. Thank you for that, Chuck. Oh, got it. Got it. Yeah, I see it, Paula. All good. We're about to wind it down here, guys. I am so honored. Thank you both. How beautiful. Yeah, Twisted Pixie. We absolutely are in this so that everyone can be a part of it. I promise you. I promise you. Thanks, rulers. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I love talking to you guys, man. This is fantastic. I love talking to chat. It's so great. Because I used to have a job where I interacted with the public all the time. I don't have that anymore. And so this is fantastic to be able to have this back in my life. And I talked about this weekend with the group that made it up to Mount Baker. Okay, I've got a wonderful intro for Saturday. Make sure you catch that. And do I miss my old job? Yes, I do, because I love my interaction with the public. I love the public, and I love the city that I live in. I have huge plans for this city. I want to make this city a beautiful place and a lovely philosophical society. I want to grow the idea of Nature Creature in this city. And so I want to have an impact at the ground level with the very stuff, the very things that I talk about every Saturday. I want to apply those characteristics to the city that I live in, because to me, that's the role of the human being, is to be an exemplar of who you are in and of yourself as a human being, and then be an exemplar in the local area that you live in, shining this light of deeper principles and consciousness, higher consciousness and resonation directly into those who you are working with, meaning you directly influence and are around every day. And so I have the intention of, transforming this city and making it into a philosophical society of people who think differently, who have higher resonant frequency, who are thinking on a level that is past the mundane 3D, and who are oriented to spirit and the deeper sense. Yes, please hit the like button. I will see you guys in 1 week on this channel. I will see you back here. Thanks for joining. Love being with you guys. We'll take it easy. See you later. Bye-bye. See you Saturday. Bye-bye.